So much for attending our WordStream webinar today. The title of today's webinar is Unbelievable Discoveries to Triple Your Conversion Rate. Just to go over today's agenda really quickly, we'll be covering a number of topics, first of which being why conventional wisdom around conversion rate optimization is silly, what's a good conversion rate. We'll be reviewing the top 10% of landing pages and what makes them tick. How can you replicate them? And finally, what does it all mean? So our speaker today is Larry Kim. Larry is the founder and CEO of WordStream, which is a provider of 20-minute PPC workweek software and the AdWords performance grader. He is the #1 PPC expert according to PPC Hero. So thank you so much, Larry, for being with us today.
Thanks, Kendall. And let me introduce Mark here on the phone today. Mark is our PPC analyst in-house at WordStream. I've had the pleasure of working with him for a couple months now, he's kind of a really brilliant math wizard, and he did a lot of work on today's presentation in terms of a lot of the research that went into coming up with all the findings for today. And I note that Mark is a huge hockey fan, and sorry about the Team USA there.
Well, thanks for rubbing it in. Thanks for the introduction as well, Larry. It's really a pleasure to be on with you.
Awesome. So, guys, Mark and I have a Twitter screen up, and so if you want to partake in a kind of a back channel discussion here, you can use the hashtag WordStream on your tweets, and we'll see those. And you can also use the chat window on the right side of your screen there. Before jumping into all the details of today's secrets of how to triple your conversion rates, we thought we could just ask a couple questions about you first. The first question has to do with how long have you been using AdWords? And the possible answers are less than a year, 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, or over 5 years. So we're very interested to know who's on the line today in terms of your experience with AdWords and how many years you've been at this.
And Larry and Mark, how long have you guys been using AdWords?
I've been using it before it existed, so like 10 years. How about you, Mark?
I've been the AdWords market for about 3 years, I want to say now.
That sounds about right. Like a lot of activity in SEM over the last couple of years.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share our results. So it looks like we've got 30% at less than 1 year, 22% at 1 to 2 years, 17% at 3 to 5 years, and 32% at over 5 years.
And guys, I have just one more question for you today, and that is your average conversion rates in terms of, as you look across your account. We're talking search here, not display. What would you say your average search engine marketing conversion rate is for the landing pages that you drive traffic to? And the options are, 0 to 1%, 1 to 3%, 3 to 7%. 7 to 10%, or even above 10%. Be honest, guys, because I know what the answer is. So no conversion rate inflation here.
All right, and I'll go ahead and share that. So we've got 24% at 0 to 1%, 39% at 1 to 3%, 21% at 3 to 7%, 5% at 7 to 10, and 11% at more than 10%.
Well, that's awesome, because that means that for a lot of you there today, we're going to be able to show you how to get into that 10 plus percent conversion rate bucket. So just stay tuned. We've got some great content coming up here. All right, so let's jump right in now. In our webinar today, we're going to be talking about how explaining how most of the conventional wisdom around conversion rate optimization that you read out there for landing pages, it's just totally wrong. And so you're probably thinking to yourself, how can this be? You've read blog posts on the subject. How can they all be wrong? You're probably skeptical. And so I understand, but I'm telling you that it's wrong, and that there's a different way of looking at things. And I understand that this might be pretty shocking because what we're going to be talking about today is definitely kind of the opposite of conventional wisdom. For the next 40 or 50 minutes or so, I just need you to help me out here. Just free your minds from all the other stuff that you've preconceived notions of landing page optimization and conversion rate optimization that you may have heard about or read about in the past, because we're going to enter kind of this out-of-the-box twilight zone here, where we're going to be talking about like really different ideas here. And so, how do we get these ideas? Well, it's not just out of thin air. It's actually born out of sophisticated computer modeling and analysis. A lot of the stuff that Mark does here, and so. We're going to be covering a ton of data here. So looking at my deck here, there's actually 60 slides here containing lots of charts and data and tables and regressions. And so I'm going to have to ask that you turn off your TV, close your emails and browsers, turn off your instant messenger, close the door. I need your focus on the subject, because we're going to be going through a lot of data, and we're only going through this once. So try to keep up here. All right. So you've been warned. So you ready for this? Today, basically, we're going to tell you the story about how Mark and I here kind of discovered that most of the landing page stuff that you read on blogs is often quite silly. And so, here's the basic structure of tens of thousands of blog posts and how-to articles on the subject of conversion rate optimization. I call them like the great landing page optimization fairy tale, and I'm sure you've seen some of them, on blogs that you read. I know I've seen, more than I can count. And so, basically, the story goes something like this. It says it starts with kind of like a preamble about how valuable it is to do optimizing your site, and then it goes into one example of where the author changed the button color, from blue to red, or the font color, or the font spacing, or some image, and lo and behold, the advertiser's conversion rate jumped by X%, where X is typically anywhere from 2 to 7%, typically in the single or low single digits. Percentage increase, and the moral of the story is like how heroic this effort was. And so, it just so happens that last month Mark and I were actually working on a very similar conversion rate optimization project, where we had kind of changed the layouts on one of our pages, and basically, that's kind of where our story begins. So basically, Mark and I were looking at the results of a test that we were running. And Mark, maybe can you tell our audience kind of what it was that we found here?
Sure, absolutely. So what we see in this chart, we have two landing pages we were running simultaneously. We're doing a split A/B test. The gray line at the bottom, that's our original, that's our A that we were previously running. And then at the beginning of January, I want to say it was, we started running this alternate version of the same landing page. And right at the beginning, we're seeing, the blue line, as you can tell, it's 3 times the conversion rate of that gray line. And that was like, Larry and I got really excited, and all of our marketing team got really excited. That was a huge improvement for us off of one landing page. But as we continue to monitor it, throughout the course of the month and into early February, we saw that over time, those blue and those gray lines, they met up. They basically converged to that long-term conversion rate, in which they were essentially equal. Towards the end of it, we actually discovered that the A, the original, slightly was outperforming the alternative, our B.
Wow. So, basically, that we were shocked, because, like, I remember this very well, Mark. We were high-fiving each other, thinking, like, holy cow, we just tripled the conversion rate. And then, like, how many days later, a few weeks later, it's like, wait a minute, what just happened here? And then so we went back and looked at other conversion rate tests that we had running, because at any given time we have, like, 20 or 30 of these things running, and it was pretty much the same pattern for the vast majority of the tests that we were running. Sort of like the winner would become a winner, and then a loser, and then a winner again. It was pretty crazy. And so we even came up with a name for this. You want to tell us a little bit about that, Mark?
Sure. I call it a PTD. That's a premature testing dilemma, also called optimitis, if you will. So right away, what you see is like, there's that early lead, and shortly thereafter, or, down the line, maybe it's 7 days, maybe it's 30 days, maybe it's 90 days, but oftentimes these small tests, what we see is that early lead disappears in the long run, which is why we're doing these tests, to find long-run solutions. And it's like a really difficult sell for us as marketers and for everyone in the industry. We see similar clients do similar tests, and we're launching these initiatives all the time, and we get really excited for that initial first success whenever we do something. But like you say, day zero, you're telling your executive team, your marketing team, or I'm telling Larry, or you're telling your clients, or your president, hey, I'm launching this test I'm really excited about it. 7 days later, you're seeing it's way outperforming the original. But then, day 30, you're writing that blog post about how changing your button color really worked for you and how it was a great redesign and you've never done anything better in your life. But then day 90, it didn't ultimately pan out.
So that's a really interesting theory here, and so I think I don't think we're claiming this happens 100% of the time here. Clearly there's kind of extreme cases in A/B testing where, suppose you were starting out with a truly, truly despicable landing page that was like really garbage, and if you were able to make that into a more professional-looking landing page, I suppose there's a good reason to believe that if there's that huge a difference in appearance, that logically that could make a difference. But what I am saying here is that, or what we're saying is that provided that you've met sort of this minimum bar in terms of like a design standard of excellence, basically what we were finding by looking at all the tests that we were running was that the small changes in terms of like the button colors, line spacing, page fonts, small changes in general tended to result in small changes in conversion rates, and a lot of times that fluctuation was just noise. It was just, normal fluctuations, just that happen every day, regardless of even if you're doing a test or not. And so, yeah, I think as marketers we want to believe that our efforts, our hard work is paying off, but we choose to interpret things a certain way. Anything to add to that, Mark?
No, I think you really hit it on the head. I mean, we're all excited. Like, this is why we're in internet marketing. There are possibilities. There's always something new that Google's doing or something new that Bing's doing, and we always have that chance to make these rapid changes, and then oftentimes we see rapid results from them. It's only natural that we're going to get excited when we see, our B slightly outperform our A off the bat, that we're going to get excited about it.
Hey Mark, someone just chatted in a question here, and listeners, just feel free to type away there in the question box. Someone's saying, this happens to me as well. Do you know why this happens? Is it just has to do with like, low conversion volume, or why does it always happen like this so often?
Yeah, I really think that a lot of this has to do with that low conversion volume. If you actually look, we kind of blurred out some of the numbers, so if you can look real close at the numbers of our test, we're comparing 45 conversions to 34 conversions, and this is over the course of, I want to say, a week. So you're ultimately going to see a lot of that small conversion volume right off the bat. So if you got 2 conversions from 15 clicks in B and you only got 1 conversion from 20 clicks in A, then that looks like an 8.5% conversion rate against a 5% conversion rate. That looks like a 50% increase right off the bat. But what you're coming down to it is, that's the difference of 1 conversion when you're looking at small data. And oftentimes when we're making our evaluations in the short run off of our tests that we just started, we're going to see those big differences just because there's not a lot of data.
Awesome. So that totally makes sense. So basically, guys, when it comes to the landing page optimization, sort of in our webinar today, I kind of want us to think big, think much bigger than all those dumb articles that say change the button color from blue to red. Now, I kind of view all that stuff as kind of small ball, landing page optimization, kind of like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It looks better this way, but maybe there's bigger fish to fry. You know what I mean? So today I'd like us to focus our time on thinking about sort of more strategic changes that will dramatically change your fortune and your conversion rates, and in turn will change your business forever. And so Mark and I, we were looking at this problem, and basically, it got us thinking, and what the heck is going on here? And so we wanted to know, why we were seeing this stuff. And so before jumping in to fix all the problems and diagnose all the problems, we needed to kind of get some diagnosis in terms of what it is considered a good conversion rate in the first place. And this is important to get these benchmarks in order to kind of figure out kind of where we stand and what kind of outcomes in terms of conversion rates are even possible, in order to know how ambitious goals that we should be setting. Sort of what is a good conversion rate anyways. And so for this, Mark has done a fairly sophisticated analysis here. Let him walk you through that. Here, go ahead.
Yeah, so absolutely. So what I did right off the bat is we have a lot of data here at WordStream. We're talking thousands, if not millions, of accounts on a monthly basis come through. So we have probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, billions of total account level activity that we can analyze. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, billions.
Yeah. Okay.
Like with a B.
So what I did is I just started looking at, I pulled a report that went back basically, I think 3 months or so, and I removed any of our accounts that didn't have conversion tracking that were set up correctly, was getting low conversion volume, so that was less than 10 conversions a month, or was just generally a low volume account, which is less than 100 clicks a month, to really weed out people whom have that low data variable that I was talking about earlier. And what I did is I just plotted where do these accounts fit in terms of conversion rate. And you can see right away, and I actually got excited when you guys answered the question at the very beginning in terms of what is your average search conversion rate. We see right away that a lot of these people, the first 2 bars, about a quarter of people have less than that 1% conversion rate. Our median in the data set, so that's our 50% point in our data set, was about 2.35% conversion rate. Moving forward, the top 25% of these accounts, they had a conversion rate that was twice that. That was about a 5.31% conversion rate. And then towards the very end, we see that, that high conversion rate stuff, it really drops off immediately. But towards the very end, our top 10% of all the accounts that came through in the last 90 days, they had an average, or they all had at least an 11.45% conversion rate. So we see that in scopes of what's going on in the industry, conversion rate is a very varied statistic. But all in all, there are those accounts out there. There's the top 10% of the accounts. We're not talking about the top 1% of accounts or, these mystical beings that are like far and out of reach. Top 10% of these accounts out there had at a conversion rate of over 11%, which is fantastic. And I know a lot of you would like to get there.
Yeah, that's great. So I think my take from looking at your research here, Mark, is that that you kind of need to the conversion rates are all over the place. You got the kind of the lousy ones and the really remarkable ones, and then the top 10% being 3, 4, or 5 times better than the average. I think that's amazing. And so, did you want to add anything on the survey methodology here? I think we kind of spoke to that already.
Yeah, I talked about it. We're talking about. I think that this data set was just over about 100,000 individual accounts, and we're removed anyone whom was not doing accurate conversion tracking or was otherwise a low volume account.
Awesome. So, guys, there's this old idiom, kind of saying about seeing the forest for the trees, and I think what they mean by that saying has to do with referring to this challenge in discerning the overall picture, from a mass of detail, to see the bigger picture, the broader picture in a specific situation. And so I think that's the challenge in AdWords for most small businesses. It's very, very difficult to see the forest for the trees. Why? Because you're just one advertiser in a sea of millions of advertisers. You only see the data that's in your own account. And it's so difficult to know, is that any good or not? Is that a good conversion rate? Naturally we think that, if you're running an A/B test, one's converting at 2%, the other's converting at 1.5%. Naturally we think that, the 2% is the winner. But the problem here is that without the additional context of knowing that 10% of these accounts are doing, 3, 4, or 500% better than that, that there's all these other guys out there kicking your butt that you don't even know about, you might not realize that your winning landing page is actually a loser. And so that's where we kind of, Mark kind of pulled out his scientific calculator, and he was like punching some numbers, and we wanted to kind of simplify this a little bit. And do you want to talk about this a little bit, Mark?
Right. So what we were looking at in the last graph is that, that average, that median conversion rate, that about 50% of our accounts are above and 50% of these accounts are below, is at 2.35%. Even when we started looking at like a smaller data set, so when we did the 200 of you that originally replied to the question at the beginning of the webinar, we saw that a lot of you fell in or around that 2% conversion rate. And this is that average conversion rate. There's nothing bad that we can say about it, but it's absolutely not remarkable. When we start talking about our top quartile, or top 25% of our accounts and their highest conversion rate, we see that 5.3% number begin to emerge. So basically double that average. And that's awesome. That's absolutely something that people in that average bucket want to aspire to. But then when you look at the top 10% of our accounts, we see this amazing conversion rate of 11.45%, which is, on average 3 to 5 times more than what you see in comparable industries and comparable accounts. And so, Larry, do you want to give these ones a name?
Yeah, so we decided to call these landing page conversion rate unicorns. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but they're just so desirable. You should aspire to have these landing page conversion unicorns in your account, as opposed to aspiring to being unremarkable. And so I think you did some additional analysis here. Do you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things whenever you make a bold statement like that, one of the things I always anticipate someone saying is, well, that's really nice, that's really true, but it's not true in my industry. I come from before I was at WordStream, I was basically focused exclusively in legal, and that's something that, we got away with saying because no one who has a great legal landing page, So what I did is I broke this across 4 large industries that we had a lot of information in terms of account data. So I'm looking at e-commerce, legal, B2B suppliers, and financial industries. As you can see, there's that median conversion rate. While it's 2.35% across all industries, in individual industries, there's a lot of flux and give. E-commerce has a fairly low conversion rate relative to just finance in general. But what we see, this is kind of the important thing that I want to stress, that rule of the top 10% of accounts have a 3 times higher conversion rate, it holds true across all of these industries. So even if you're an online retailer and you're in that 1.84% conversion rate range, there are still people out there whom are getting that conversion rate 3 times yours. That's 6.25. That's actually a little more than 3 times. There's still people out there in legal whom, although you might be converting at 1 or 2%, there are still people who are converting at 6.5%. And on the other end of that spectrum, you could be up on your high horse in finance, who has like a typically higher conversion rate, and be like, yeah, no, I'm definitely at the top. I've got that 5% conversion rate. And I want to bring attention there that, yeah, you're doing well at 5% conversion rate overall, but there's still people in your space who are converting at nearly a quarter of all of their traffic.
So Mark, I just feel like that whole thing then, based on this analysis, when your expert says, oh, it's not possible in this industry, that seems like such a cop-out.
Well, I don't want to say cop-out, but like I would just want to say that it's a little naive. And like I can say that. I've absolutely been in that position. Like I said, I came from that specifically legal background. And the reason you say that is because you only have access to what's in your account. We used to have days where we would get something and we would get a conversion rate of a 2.3%. Hooray! That's 10% better than what we were doing.
Yeah,
and that was something that we would brag around the office about how we were able to improve that whole 10%. When literally that goes back to the forest versus the trees. We just improved ourselves a little bit, but there were still people out there, and that was kind of the humbling thing about when I started at WordStream, and I had access to all of this data, is that there were those people whom I was specifically competing against, who were still kicking my butt.
It's pretty funny, huh?
Yeah.
So that's what I love about this analysis. So yeah, guys, there you have it. Hopefully, in the last few minutes, we've convinced you, that this notion of making these small changes on your buttons or whatever, your font, whatever, to get your 2% conversion rate improvements. Well, it's definitely a step in the right direction, and I don't want to kind of scoff at it, but it's not as good as you think it might be, since there's other pages out there that can have conversion rates of maybe 200% or 300% or even 500% above the conversion rate. And so that being said, I just want us all to strive to be above average as opposed to setting the bar so low. And so kind of back to our story here, kind of just recapping here. Mark and I were like in the WordStream PPC operations bunker. It's kind of this room where we do our most important client work. It kind of looks like the White House Situation Room, with like these big screens on the walls and everything with whiteboards. Anyways, Mark's got his calculator out. He's punching in numbers. I'm writing up these computer queries in my database, and we have all these diagrams on the whiteboard, and it was just so amazing. And so basically, what we had discovered, that all this small scale stuff, conventional landing page optimization, a lot of it can just be explained away by day-to-day noise and our tendency to want to believe in it, that our hard work had paid off. And we've just completed a regression on billions of dollars of ad spend, proved the existence of these landing page conversion unicorns, that we define here specifically as landing pages that do 3 times better, as in 300% better than the average converting landing pages out there. And so this brings us back to our next epiphany, which has to do with, figuring out, what do these landing page conversion unicorns actually look like? We have got thousands of them to look at, but what do they specifically look like? And it was getting late in the day, but it was just so exciting, so we decided to push forward and kind of figure out what's the connection. Why are these landing pages doing 300% better than the average ones out there? And it's a huge difference there, and so we needed to figure out kind of what was going on. And so you know what we did? We looked at them. We just loaded pages in our browsers, kind of one by one. We we looked at almost 1,000 of them, but basically manually we were just clicking on these different landing page links, kind of doing a qualitative review of the different landing pages, kind of noting in a spreadsheet what elements they had in common, all of which we're going to share to you in the form of kind of 3 representative examples that sort of exemplified or represented the essence of what we saw on these landing pages. Okay, and so let me walk you through this. So again, because of client privileges, like we don't like to always talk about our clients. I'm going to just kind of give them examples in terms of WordStream examples because because I didn't want to show client landing pages here. But basically, the first idea that we saw it was really brilliant across all of these high-performing landing pages was the degree, we were blown away at how creative and differentiated some advertisers' offers were in comparisons to the offers being offered by their peers. And so, sometimes I feel like companies, they just have this notion of a default offer. It's kind of like a stumbling block. It's just everyone else has the same offer, so I'm going to have that same offer too. It really boils down to a lack of creativity and imagination. And so, I'm going to put myself on the spotlight here. Make myself as the bad example. In software companies, it's almost always the call to action is to try the software. Like WordStream's a software vendor for paid search management software, and what should we offer? Well, we should let them try it out. As similarly, like for if you're a legal lawyer firm, it's generally to book some kind of a free consultation. Like there's these typical markets where there's just this very kind of uncreative, basic offer that everyone pushes to. And just to illustrate the point here, I want to give you an example of how we recently changed our offer and how it radically changed our business. And so what you're looking at here, this is a screenshot of my WordStream website from just over 2 years ago. Now, look at what it says on the homepage. It says, WordStream's powerful PPC platform, driving your search marketing success, try it free. So there we are, just like all the other software companies, pushing to our standard trial of a software. Now, somewhere along the line, we got the idea to maybe change it. Now, the company's been around for 6 years, and we only changed this about 2.5 years ago. So the point is, like, we're reasonably smart marketers here, but this didn't even occur to us until just very relatively recently. And so the idea here was, we wanted to change our primary offer from the software trial to grading your AdWords account. So kind of figuring out how you're doing in your AdWords account, where are the problems, how did we come to this epiphany? Well, it was because our customers or prospects, we asked them like, what is it that you'd like us to help you with? And the answer was like, well, we want to know if you can help us with our paid search activity. We want to know if you're doing good or if we're doing good or bad, and how much we can improve, and where we should direct our efforts. And it occurred to us that there could be a better offer than just dumping people into a trial, that could better highlight and solve the problem and the pain that they were trying to do. So in some ways, it seems very obvious in retrospect. Like, of course, it makes more sense to show a report because it's much more clear. It shows exactly where the problem is, the benefits, where to focus. It's quicker. You don't have to be figuring out how to use some software program. It's just like a report. But it took us literally 3 years to figure this out. And I like to think that we're kind of like ahead of the curve. And so the key here is that by changing the primary offer from being a trial to an actionable report, which you can get, by the way. Just go to www.wordstream.com/Google-AdWords, and you can grade your report and figure out all the issues with your report, and it's completely free. The point is, by changing that offer to something really out of the box and more creative, that fundamentally changed our business. It was just, and so I can't reveal all the secrets of these advertisers, but the key point here is to think out of the box. How can your offer be not like all the other offers in your industry? Now, I just wanted to kind of describe to you a process to kind of figuring out, if your offer stinks. Well, there's 2 ways to figure out if your offer stinks. The first one is if your conversion rate is like, the 2%-ish or lower, because those are the unremarkable stuff. Clearly, you're not, you're not killing it if your offer it's too low, if it's like 1% or 0.5%, you know. But the real way that we figured this out was like on the contact us submission forms, we just added a box at the bottom where it said, you know, can you tell us about what we were hoping to for us to help you with today? Literally, it was just one free form field at the bottom of the Contact Us button, right underneath the name and email and phone number thing. It says, and what would you like us to help you with? You know, and by reading that data, that's how we figured out that that's what people actually wanted to see. They weren't necessarily looking to try out a piece of software. And so, you know, that has to do with just asking your customer and then trying to be relevant. I mean, again, seems kind of obvious in hindsight, but you'd be surprised. You'll never know how great it is unless you try and execute on that new offer. And so you have to kind of keep an open mind there. The second kind of area that we saw in terms of the you know, huge kind of commonalities amongst the high-performing conversion rate landing page unicorns had to do with changing the flow. So again, I'm going to just stick in software here because it's kind of a business that I understand, but this is applicable across all the different industries. Again, very typical, this particular vendor, it's like kind of a desktop software for Windows, so you have to download the software and try it out. And look how they've put a registration form in front of their software. You can't download the software unless you fill out this whole thing. So that's quite a barrier there. And so instead, what they've done, this is just an example, they've changed the flow. So rather than just changing the colors of the buttons or the colors of the font, the high-performing landing page unicorns actually change the flow of their processes. Okay, so instead of asking for people's emails and contact information to get access to the downloadable thing, they flipped it around. They inverted it. So anyone could then go and download the file and install it. But at the last step of the installer, it says to register the software. Okay, and by that time you've already invested 5, 10, 15 minutes of downloading and installing the software, and then they put the kind of the barrier right at the last moment there, so that these are the types of things that where you get the 2, 3, or 4x increases in your conversion rates, not just the 2%, but 2 times or 3 times, 300% changes. So this was incredibly effective for kind of inverting it. In fact, it was too effective. They ended up getting way too many registrations that they couldn't even handle, like all of the data that was being submitted to them. And so they ended up kind of backing it off. What they did was they made the registration optional, like, it's because everyone was registering, and so they had too much data. They only wanted the people who were really strongly committed to the software, and so they made it so that after using it for 7 days, then the registration became mandatory, because at that point, you've kind of proven yourself to be a qualified lead, and at that point they want to talk to you. So you see how this is so fundamentally different from changing the button color? They're actually changing the flow of their system, and these are the types of things that get you the 2 or 3 or 4 times improvements, as opposed to the 2 or 3% improvements. So that's a huge thing that we saw in our manual review. And just want to drive home that point, this notion of quality versus quantity. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're just trading, getting more leads by getting more unqualified buyers to fill out your form, right? Because if you're doing e-commerce, then a sale is a sale. There's no such thing as a bad sale. But if you're doing lead generation for your paid search, well then there actually is a cost for the leads that you generate, and that you have these sales reps that have to follow up with them. And so the notion of lead quality matters a great deal. And so you don't want to be just making the button color red, so that, did you know that babies prefer bright things, and they like to hold bright color to things. So if you're just changing the colors of your buttons to red or something, you might be just getting more of these people to click on this thing because it caught their eye, not necessarily because they're more qualified. But the two kind of patterns that I'm showing you of changing your offer, like making them more motivated and learn what the issues are in their account, and make them very motivated to fix the problem, or changing the flow, like only taking the registration when they've kind of crossed a minimum level of interest. That is sort of the opposite of just changing the button color, because you're also getting not only more but higher quality leads, and so I think that's the key here. Just another example of changing the flow, because there were many creative ways where people changed the order of how they took information to dramatically increase the click-through rate. Just going back to our AdWords grader again, I know it's like we're talking about ourselves all the time here, but this has to do with confidentiality and stuff like this. So the key here is that we've made this into a 3-step process. You see this? It says, like, tell us about your company. There's a couple forms here. Second step is to log into Google AdWords, and then the third step is you get the free report card of showing how your AdWords account is doing. And so it used to be like one form where you'd have to do all of this stuff in one big step. But it turned out that logging into AdWords was really hard, because maybe they don't have the account username and password. Maybe it's like they're a consultant, or it's Johnny, or their brother-in-law. So like that was a real stumbling block. And so what we did was we broke up the flow into smaller, more manageable pieces. That way, instead of having a 2% conversion rate, we ended up with like a much higher conversion rate. I'm not going to say the number, but it was a multiple of like high integer multiple of what it was before. A lot of them are able to get past the first step, and then when they get back to the second step and fail, we at least have their information, and we can remind them, like, oh, can we help you, do that thing. So like it's this notion of changing the flow of how we interact with the person. It is very significant. We didn't have to change the button colors. It had everything to do with the flow. And one last example here. Is to let them choose. This was a really high converting landing page. Addiction is an illness. It needs medical solution. It's like, are you struggling with addiction? Does someone you need love, need help now? It's just, this was so remarkable, because it just lets them have very customized offers. Yeah, that's sort of has to do.
Right. And Larry, more on that slide, one of the things that right off the bat, and I know you've done a lot of research specifically into industries with a high cost per click. Off the top of your head that rehab, legal, a lot of finance, they have these really high cost per clicks. And so very frequently you'll be seeing these people when you're structuring your paid search accounts. One of those problems is you're going to have people, like, it's a matter of semantics sometimes when you're choosing your keywords. How do you make help with addiction reach the right people when they're searching that? Because you can even exact match help with addiction, and you're going to get different kinds of people who are searching for that. There are going to be people whom are looking for themselves. There are going to be people whom are looking for others, and you want to cater those offers on your landing page differently to those kinds of people. This not only gives you that right off the bat, you let them choose their own flow, and then you let them choose the marketing that you're going to be putting in front of them, but it also allows you to segment more on this down the line, but it allows you to segment your remarketing list. It allows you to really drive home that message when they convert, because you know exactly whom you're talking to on the phone. This is one that I'm a huge fan of.
Awesome. Yeah, segment your way to success, basically. So a third thing that we were looking for, that we saw, was that a lot of these unicorn advertisers with the high converting landing pages, we noticed that they were using remarketing. So remarketing for the I think it was like the 15% of people who are new to paid search. It's just a really cool system. Basically, it's based on this idea that 96% of the people who visit your website, like they leave your website without ever converting to a lead or a sale, or 70% of people abandon their shopping cart without making the purchase. And so, it's very frustrating because we work so hard to get these people to the site, and then most of the times they don't convert. And so, the remarketing just lets you tag those visitors, and then show your ads to them, off your site when they're reading their Gmail or when they're watching cat videos on YouTube, etc. You can message to them to kind of finish what it is they started, and it was really validating to see so many of the a disproportionate number of the high high landing page people using this tactic as well. And I guess intuitively that makes sense. I kind of view remarketing as a conversion rate activity, kind of loosely, in that it by definition is targeting kind of the abandoners and then trying to get them to come back. And so that's a pretty big deal. Let's go to our next epiphany, and that has to do with your effort level. Like, how hard is it to build these high conversion landing pages? Mark, do you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about getting those top converting, finding these landing page unicorns, exactly how frequent are they, and how much effort do you need to put into, how much testing do you need to put in? It doesn't always come down to effort. Sometimes you get dumb lucky. But how frequently you should be testing, and how much you need to do here to reach these conversion rate levels. So we're talking about, right here, we're talking about an advertiser who's currently got that average 2% conversion rate, and they want to take it to the next level. To land in the top 25, that's a relative abundance. To land in the top 25% of these landing pages, and to increase your conversion rate by that by 100% to twice as good, that's a 1 in 4 relative abundance. So on average, what you'll see is you need to really be testing 4 unique offers, 4 unique initiatives, 4 unique landing pages. When we talk about the unicorns, the top 1%, whom are getting sometimes that 5% higher, that 5 times higher conversion rate, they're in the top 10%, so that relative abundance is 10 to 1. So if you're currently sitting there and you're currently average, what do you need to do to find a unicorn? You really need to mix it up with about 10 unique offers, and that's a lot of testing.
So it's 10 landing pages. Like, a lot of companies actually have 10 landing pages and might not be seeing the benefits of a huge, plus 10% conversion rate. And so, but I have one. So the challenge here is that you might not have as many landing pages as you think you have. And what I mean by this is that if you have, A versus B, where A is the same content, B is like a different spacing of the content. I'm kind of viewing this as kind of the small ball. Same landing page with different spacing. That only counts as one. What we're talking about here is, fundamentally different flows, fundamentally different offers, that kind of stuff. You need to get to 4 or 10 of those different things to try on average to get to one awesome unicorn. The next kind of epiphany has to do with, like, that sounds hard, but maybe it's not that hard, and here's why. This has to do with an observation that we made here. Do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what I did is I just pulled this from one of our managed services e-commerce clients. And so they have, I want to say that they have 1,000 unique landing pages, in the sense that some of them are sending them to the home page, some of them are sending to a specific product line, some of them are sending to a specific product. But at the end of the day, what we noticed is right off the bat, most of your traffic, or sorry, not most of your traffic, but about 1/3 of your traffic, and this held true across several accounts in the same industry, about a third of your traffic is still going to that #1 most trafficked landing page. When you got into the nitty-gritty of it all, you're still sending roughly 80% of all of your traffic to roughly 10% of all of your landing pages. So when you're talking about, I don't want to remake thousands and thousands of landing pages, it doesn't necessarily need to be that difficult. You need to take those landing pages that you know are going to get the most traffic, and you know what those are. They're in your accounts. And you need to focus most of your time making those better.
Awesome. So in many cases, because the typical small business account, small business typically has 3 landing pages. It essentially means that you can get by with, just one great landing page, because that's probably generating the lion's share of the account of the traffic. And so, you might think that that's a little counterintuitive, one doesn't simply send all your traffic to one landing page. But the reality is that if it's a great landing page and you're a small business, that could be enough. Mark did some analysis. Mark, we're going to have to pick it up a little bit here. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, so basically one of those things that everyone has an impression of is, oh, well, if I just make more landing pages, I'm going to increase my conversion rate overall. What I did is I plotted out tens of thousands of accounts into this conversion rate versus unique landing pages distribution scatter plot, and I put that regression line in. We don't really see that strong correlation where as you increase the number of landing pages, your conversion rate automatically picks up. And so while that might be true in within your individual account, that as you flesh out your product lines with different landers, they improve, we don't suggest that you just go out and make new landing pages for the sake of it.
Great. Just one note on mobile ads here. So I think that mobile ads, like the click-to-call button, radically changes the flow, which is one of the things that we were talking about earlier. So what I mean by this is that the calls, these buttons on the search results, bypass the landing page step altogether, which was a leaky bucket that had a single-digit conversion rate. And so furthermore, the intent of these calls is much stronger than a click to a website. So people who want to call need help now. And so, we did some research here. The calls were converting at a much higher rate than clicks to the website. And so, from that perspective, I kind of view click to call, utilization as a very insane way of doing landing page optimization, in that it bypasses the landing page altogether. All right, we're almost at the end here. It says to just ignore the conversion rates. So what the heck am I talking about? Because all this time we've been talking about how important it is to have a high conversion rate. And here's our hero, and I just wanted to call to attention the definition of a conversion rate, and that is it has to do with the number of conversions, the completed actions divided by the visits to a page. And so just stressing, beware, any kind of changes that merely exchanges quality for quantity, like just having a red button, and that makes people want to click on the thing even though they're not qualified. Like all of the things that we were talking about, we're trying to point you in the direction of landing page optimizations that'll generate more quality leads, because the reverse, just having more leads but lower quality, could actually harm your business. So let's just recap everything of our presentation here today. Most of the landing page optimizations, we view that as kind of rearranging the deck chairs. It's small changes that result in small and often insignificant changes. Instead, our idea here is to focus instead on these insane landing page optimization tactics that we talked about today that produce the big changes and can potentially improve lead quality too. At this point, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of our offers today and a little bit about WordStream. Got to pay the bills here. As I was saying earlier, WordStream is a PPC management provider. We provide something called the 20-minute PPC Workweek, as well as the Google AdWords Grader, so you can get a free report on how you're doing on AdWords. Give that a try today. Here's that 20-minute PPC Workweek that I was telling you about. It's like a really simple kind of guided thing that tells you exactly what you should be doing in your account every week. It gives you 10 things to do. It takes 20 minutes, and it'll put you on a path to success in improving the return on your investment. It's ideal for people who are not full-time search marketers and have other things, can't spend 60 hours a week on paid search, which is most of you. On the subject of landing pages, like we also are a provider of leads and landing page management software. So we've got these wizards and templates to help you create professional quality landing pages, with just minutes. It's very simple, and you can see it here. It's so simple. Just you just fill out this wizard, and then we'll capture the leads for you. That's so easy. And just released this week, I'm really proud to announce that we've released something called the landing page grader as well. So what that is if you go to www.wordstream.com/landing page, you can actually figure out how good your landing pages are for your specific industry. Like if you're, basket weaving or something like this, like we know what the conversion rate should be, and you can, pick your industry, and we'll tell you, how you're doing compared to the benchmark. And this is like insight that you can only get here. Give it a try at www.wordstream.com/landing pages. At this point, Kendall, can we just ask our audience if they have any interest in one of our offers today?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me launch that for you guys. So we've got 3 offers for you. We have the first being a free live demo of WordStream's PPC Advisor software. We have get a one-on-one AdWords grader walkthrough with a PPC expert. And we have nothing at the moment. And I'm actually going to leave this up while we go through just a couple of questions. I know we're almost running over here. So go ahead and click whatever you'd like. So Larry and Mark, I have a question for you guys. So when do you stop an A/B test? Is it a number of visitors that you look at? Is it the number of conversions? Is it time? What is it?
So generally, and Larry, feel free to jump in if you have strong feelings on it. But generally what I like to do is, if you're talking small conversion volume on your site, I don't like to make any decisions until I see about 30 conversions or so, just because that's basically the number that we in the field use as like a benchmark to be statistically significant. Anything like under that 30 number, you're going to be really variable to 15 versus 13, and how big a difference is that in terms of your conversion rate. You don't necessarily want to be making that decision off of too few conversions or too few conversion difference. If you've definitely got a larger account, then I always like to recommend more if you can afford it. More data is always going to show you that long-term growth. And I mean, Kendall, we were talking about this earlier in the sense of our A/B test within WordStream.
Mm-hmm.
We know that just over that course of a week, that first test, we get a lot of traffic here, and that first test blew out right away. The difference between those 2 tests was really only the difference of, I want to say, under 20 conversions. So it kind of comes down to a percentage of your total conversion volume.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of you would be better to know what that number is for your own accounts, but just put that into perspective when you're making that decision. There's not a hard and fast rule, but I'd also recommend at least 30.
I have an even easier approach. So what I do is I look for huge changes. So like, basically I just declare it a tie, unless there's like, a 3 or 4 or 5 times difference. It's always a push for me unless I see a huge difference. Next question.
Yep. So we actually have a quick question about mobile. I know we skimmed over pretty quickly. I run a small business and don't have the time or resources to improve my mobile site. Do you have any advice on how to get customers to convert on mobile?
Yeah, so one of the big things that we're suggesting is that mobile click-to-call, it was probably one of the greatest things to come out of the enhanced campaign migration. A lot of bad things came with it as well, but that mobile click-to-call, that if people are do that, you basically see that as a 100% conversion rate. You're paying that cost per click that you would normally in that auction, but it's a direct connection to a real person on the phone. If you're currently on mobile, I highly recommend ensuring that you're showing for that click-to-call. And if you're not on mobile, and you don't necessarily want to send people to your website, it is possible to also set that click-to-call extension up so that it will only show that click-to-call extension, and you won't be directing people to your website. You'll only be directing people to call.
Yeah, that's huge because the funnel is just so leaky. Like if someone clicks to your website, then there's only like a 4 or 5 or 6% chance that they'll convert to something. And even if you get their contact information, you'll find that you can't get all of them, get a hold of all of them. So like half of them, you call them back the next day, and they won't be available, or you know what I mean. Like, so you just won't be able to connect with them. It's just crazy. So this one optimization, lets you short circuit that entire leaky bucket of two kind of stages where you lose people, like not being able to connect with them, and them not giving you their information, and really jump to the call. Like, that's so valuable.
Great, that's a great answer. So I'm going to wrap up because we're a little bit over. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll question. Larry, do you want to go to the last slide to show your contact information?
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for attending our insane webinar today on conversion rate optimization. Hope we've given you some new perspectives, a little bit different from all the other stuff. And if you have any questions, you can contact Mark or myself at the information below. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.